I am Guillermo Del Toro.
Yeah!
And it is a great privilege to say with us is Baz Luhrmann.
Woo!
Look at him.
Yeah!
Look at you. How about this pose here? Huh?
What a Saturday.
Thank you.
You rock, Mr. Luhrmann! Woo!
How about them fucking apples?
I have to say, I gotta say one thing. If ever I had a brother in cinema, right? Forget a great friend, but a brother in cinema, this is the man.
Yeah.
We were actually born as twins, just no one knows about it.
I mean the fat Elvis period. That is prime. Anyway, what an amazing experience. I mean, there's never been anything like this, Baz. Never. So I know everybody must know the genesis, but you stumbled upon the footage when you were researching Elvis. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was an accident, and I mean, we talk, when we talk, I guess it's like surgeons talk or priests, I don't know, but we have a language. But you would understand this, that what happened was, just the really quick part of the history of it is that Ernst Jorgenstein, who's the scientist of all things Elvis, said, look, I think there might be this missing reel from the Vegas show. And I thought, gee, maybe I can get it and use it in the showroom, a bit of found footage stuff, you know. And the thing is, it's in salt mines, literally in salt mines in Kansas City. And the reason it's in a salt mine, you know, is that all the MGM negative is there because they need to keep the moisture away because it rots, right?
Yeah.
So I had the money to actually spend the money to get someone to go in and find it. So they go down and they go into the salt mines, and I wasn't actually there, but I get the photos, and it's a bit, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, like, dun, 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 kicks the door in, and there's dust everywhere, and there are 65 boxes or reels of negative, and on the boxes it says Elvis 1974 nights, 16 mil of the tour, and at exactly the same time we got in possession through the wonderful Angie Marchese, 8mm that had never been seen of Elvis. Great. So they bring it all back, and Guillermo, you know, like the smell of rotting negative, it's vinegar. So it was dissolving, actually dissolving, because it smells like vinegar. And so we couldn't use the footage. I didn't end up making the showroom. I convinced Warner's to scan it at least before it all just dissolved. There was no sound. It was just picture. So at the end of it, John O'Rebin and I, my creative partner in this, you know, the editor and, you know, really, really, honestly, the soul of this whole venture, we go, well, what are we going to do? You know, we can't kind of reheat the other, you know, docos and the stuff we were seeing. So began a 2-year process of finding Mag, which we did find, Elvis's voice of the band. We found some orchestrations were a bit damaged. We found most of the suites was good. And we also, it took 2 years to physically sync the sound with the pictures. So we do that. And then one day we opened a box and it had Nagra tape in it, not Mag. Nagra, what's that doing there? We put it on, and it's Elvis talking so unguarded about his life. And that was the moment we went, what if he tells his own story? Because all those lovely docos about Elvis are always people talking heads about him.
Yeah.
And in that moment we went, right, he will tell his story and everything else will follow. And we have money and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I have to say, I was just saying to you a minute ago, I said, have you made anything where you've got the footage? And I said, it's the most enjoyable thing I've ever done. And you said, why? I said, well, because it's like having a baby without having to be pregnant, you know? Like, you don't have to ride it.
I would go for that.
We would go like, yeah, because you don't ride it. You didn't have to shoot it. Someone else did that. And guess what? I knew it was cast brilliantly, you know, with the lead role. So all we had to do
We have a
was,
star already.
yeah, we knew the star had you know, we weren't breaking someone new. He had the chops, you know.
But I think that what you did here, I mean, there's so many things that are remarkable. I think the fact that this is packed and people need this experience in this size of screen, in this collectiveness, is one thing. And, what you've done is a resurrection, not only because, I mean, you did it on the movie, we thought in Venice back then, or Cannes, wherever the fuck we were. I don't
We get
remember.
around.
Yeah, but we talked that day, and one of the things that you did was recuperate the Vegas Elvis as something beautiful and powerful and part of his prime, the first show. You know? And I think the times when he existed, I think he was ahead of his time, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but you came in and you demonstrated the caliber of artist. He is in every aspect with this. You basically reconstructed this, not to show a dramatic fall, because the temptation with Elvis and Marilyn is the victimhood.
Yes.
It's like catnip for a storyteller.
Yes.
But you went for glory. Talk a little bit about that.
So interesting you bring up Marilyn, you know, so interesting. Catnip. First of all, he says it, this is the extraordinary thing. And what you're getting at, you know, is it's true. Like the white jumpsuit period becomes this kind of Halloween costume, you know? It becomes the, you know, but he says it in the film. He thinks he's going into Vegas to do this, like, you know, the thing is 50s. He's the most famous young man on the planet. There was no precedent for a teenage idol like that. There wasn't teenagers. They were invented around Elvis. Then the next thing, he's so famous, he's suddenly going off to the army like, you know, BTS. And you know, he's on the way there and his mother dies. And it rips his heart out. And when he comes back, the Colonel's got him in movies, which I loved as a kid, but I thought he was cool, but it was so soul-destroying. And he just, a river of money, he was the highest paid actor in Hollywood, but hating it and self-loathing. And then comes a moment of, I must take back my creativity. And that begins with the comeback special. And then he goes to Vegas, and you see him in here, he goes, you know, I'm going to tour, I'm going to go to England, and I'm going to go to Japan, and he's going to put this incredible show, which no one expects together, which is the second year in 1970, and he's on his way to do it. And, you know, in a way, Jono and I, because he does the tour, and then he goes back to Vegas, and then he does the tour, and then he goes back to Vegas, like a bird smashing his head against the glass wall until he's gone. And I don't know if I could tell you it would end differently, but I do believe that if he could have used his creative wings and got out of that gilded cage and have gone to England and gone to Japan, then I know the excitement of that new audience.
Now he's going.
Yeah, well, we're giving him the world tour he dreamed of but never had, you know? So, yeah, and I tell you, your point is a very good storytelling point. Because we got to a point, I was like, you know, in the film, we do the Unchained Melody, where the body is corrupted, but the soul and the song still is high.
Okay.
But Jono, the poem actually at the end is an interesting story, because I'm, you know, Bono's a friend of mine. I was in the south of France. Just hanging out, you know, having some fun in the south of France. And I said, we were at Cap Ferrat, and I think Bono's got a place over here in Edge. And so I text him, I'm back, text him, I'm back. The third day, he goes, that's the wrong number, I'm over here, coming out lunch. So I go over, he goes, and I tell him what I'm doing. And Bono goes, you know, I wrote a poem about Elvis. And he goes and gets the poem, he reads it to me. So Jono Redman, who's my editor, he's Irish, And he worked for you too as a kid.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and amazing, right? So I come in one day, and he just puts the poem on at the end. And I said, no, is that? He said, don't be Elvis. And then we leave it on and keep playing it, and then you realize, hang on, he's just one of so many musicians who have so much lineage to Elvis. Having someone from now do a poem at the end leaves it where it is, but a poem is abstract, and we think of the film as being poetic. And, like I said earlier, I said, like, Bob Dylan, I got so many quotes, said, the greatest moment of my life is when Elvis recorded one of my songs, and we just left, and that's where we left it, which is open, a poem, just saying what he had done, who he was, and like you decide.
And the stature, yes. I mean, the voice, what a fucking voice.
Woo!
I mean, that voice is inarguable, but the moment he goes to Vegas, a lot of people, the zeitgeist is behind. I think he is completely modern.
Yeah.
He's decades ahead of his time.
Yeah.
But the reason I brought up Marilyn is Kim Morgan says Marilyn, everybody says the victim, but nobody talks about how well she knew the lens.
Yes.
How she was almost like self-directing. And Elvis, the theatricality that he does, where everything is wired to his body.
Yes.
The lights,
Yes.
the battery, and not only that, but he knows when to go down
Yep.
and when to come back.
Yeah.
And is almost gospel, voodoo, everything writing, the spirit writing it.
It's 100% true. You know what? And I said this earlier, that a living legend, who I won't say who it is, but he's a lead singer in a band. I don't want to say it is, no, but he sort of speaks a bit like that, actually. But he said to me, the thing about me is, like, I sort of do my steps, I rehearse. Or, there's one other person, probably as famous as Elvis, we rehearse. But Elvis never rehearsed. He said he would go in, and he would orchestrate with his voice, and everybody, they learned all the songs, they never knew what he was going to do. And Ronnie Tutt, the drummer, every person on stage was watching him. You just saw it then. When he was doing the end of Suspicious Minds, they never knew when he was going to finish. He'd just go and feel it. And I think he was his body, he was the music. And you were right to say gospel, because I think he's kind of the high priest of music. He's got the band watching him and the audience watching him, and
the guy with the light.
Everyone's going like, and like they do not know what's going to happen.
It's
And
a
that
full
makes him,
theatrical performance.
it's a religious kind of experience, because you do not know what's going to happen. He's completely alive in the moment.
And that's the amazing thing is completely authentic.
Yes.
And this is the other part that I admire of the documentary. In many ways, we know how it ends. In many ways, we know he's sort of trapped. But I argue, as artists, we are very incompetent socially in life. And I wonder if, for a moment, and during those years, he's existing in the only place
That he's come.
where he can be.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you couldn't be said better, because on stage, he's the most comfortable. It's like when he's lounging.
And he has a family.
Off stage, totally uncomfortable. And I think, Guillermo, we often talk about primary character, and I think that primary character, we can all judge, but we're not the most famous person on the planet. We're not that person. And things that are good for us, go and sit under a palm tree, or a relationship, they just don't quite do it for you. So with Elvis, the only love he really comes to trust is the love across the footlights,
Yeah.
the love of the fans, and the love that they give back.
And he can be unguarded.
It's like that.
But also there's 50 crossing lines. He has the arrogance and the swagger of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
He has the martial arts moves way ahead. He has the Shazam suit,
Yeah.
right? He has this comic book hero suit. He's being earnest. I mean, you and I, one of the things that we chat about is whatever we do in earnest.
Yeah.
We do from the gut and the heart, and it's so beautiful to see him
Yeah.
expressing himself.
On that point, I mean, he didn't have a stylist from being a kid. He came up with the sideburns. He decided on he talked about, and the suits were made by Baloo, but he wasn't an able song where like, this is your look. He created that bit of a side thing. But I found doing the research, Muhammad Ali went, when I was a kid, I saw Elvis, I went, I want to be like that, only a boxer.
Yeah.
And Elvis and Elvis made Muhammad Ali a costume like that for his boxer suit. Yeah. So the influence isn't just music, you talk about the story.
There's two things that are so urgent for us to recuperate: the ritual, the sacrament of art again, because we're being robbed of it by a zeitgeist that is completely algorithmic and metric, and I think we need to be big again. Big, bold, crazy, sincere, and emotional. And this gives us that license. I mean, seeing this movie is a religious experience.
So true, so true.
But I want you to take a moment and take that fucking compliment. Because I'm telling you, the reason we all come to this is because he's doing some healing for our spirit. You have to do it.
There's a lot about AI. By the way, just so you know, because some kids have said, oh, don't get so excited, just use AI to bring it. I said, there is not a frame of AI in this film. And I'd say the only visual effect in this film is the effect Elvis has on audiences. But I tell you something, the thing about AI is it basically scrapes, and you go, oh, it's just like. And you go, it's perfect. The thing about human beings, which is what you're getting at, Guillermo, it's the imperfection, it's the uniqueness, it's the chaos of Elvis that is the humanity. And the thing is, it's a bit like when they invented the camera, right? When they invented the camera, portrait artists went, I don't have a job. Until this other guy, this human being, said, well, what if I paint your psychology, not your face?
Yes.
And last time I checked a Picasso, was still worth a few bucks, Like, you know what I mean? Human, as you say, as creators, as artists, we need to pivot, and I think the pivot is absolutely back to the authentic, the human, that. And I think that, I think exactly what you said.
No, and what you have is your logo, which I think is a dictum. I mean, it says, a life lived with fear is a life
Half-lived.
Yeah. And I think we exist in a moment of fear, right?
Yes.
And we have to purge it by failing. Fuck it. Let's put all the chips in one number, and if it doesn't fall, fuck it. Let's move on. But we have to be bold, and this is so bold from you. So now, how long does it take, the process? The complete process?
To do this?
Yes.
It took so long to get everyone to agree, and the publishing and all that took a long time. But hey, you know how bad I am with numbers? Is there anyone here, Fletch, you around? How long did it actually take from when I started working with John, like really cutting? About a year?
This film,
Just the cutting.
this film like a year and a half. But
Year and a half.
You were cutting with John when you made Elvis. You made a reel for Elvis 9 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean this, about a year and a half. Same length as most, really. Ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now the other thing is the reason I brought the final performances and the way he's wired everybody and the way he interacts unguardedly with what is his family. These people are the people that he knows, aside from the Memphis Mafia, he knows these people the best. But the reason I said that is so wisely structured. You begin where you begin, you ascend where you ascend. In the middle of the film, I said, he can't top this. And then you top it. So tell me a little bit, did you try different ways?
Actually, you'll be interested in this. It was a bit like, once we decided Elvis would tell the story, we did themes linear. So, the beginning, going to Vegas, coming back, and we did large pods. We called them pods, but they were large extended beats. And then it was about also at the same time going, well, where do we get back? we don't have that in the recording. Can we get a voiceover? And there were like collectors who are very, very invisible, are very, don't want to be acknowledged. And some of them would come forward and say, well, I've actually got this interview, or I've got that bit. So as we got more bits, we would fill that in, and then we would focus it down more and more until it was, we were always having to stay dead on point. I'll give you an example where we wanted it to be a dreamscape because, otherwise we couldn't keep it linear. I tell this because there's a bit in it where Elvis sings Oh Happy Day, right? The gospel. Now we have him doing the voice, but the recordings of the Sweet Inspirations wasn't that good. However, I remember when we did Elvis the movie, we worked with Shannon and this group. When Elvis was a kid, he used to sneak into East Street Church and watch Mahalia Jackson and a great black gospel choir singing. And we thought, what if we could make that dream come true? So I rang Shannon Saunders in Nashville. He got this great gospel choir together, and they recorded with Elvis that track which you hear in here. So that's why we were able to sort of deal with it like a poem. And as we brought it more and more down, we just kept it on point to the story. So I guess it's like both writing and editing at
the same time.
Exactly, that's it.
Now, the other thing, an element, Tim Davis, whom I admire and love very much. Tim Davis, the score, the way you guys counterpoint with it, is so beautiful. Because it's a voice on top of the voice, almost like, not narrating, but it adds a layer. Yes. How early did you start working with him?
Well, there's Tim Davies, Elliot, Jamison Shaw, actually. They're all part of my music team. And Tim did certain specific arrangements and things where we thought, like, well, we need to get that vibe. Jamison Shaw's an amazing young guy, started with me years ago, but sometimes we took 2 or 3, where we needed Elvis music, instead of just score, we would take 2 or 3 Elvis songs and make a new one. Like, these tracks, and sort of, we called them DNA. We were like DNAing new songs. And then Elliot Wheeler, who scored Elvis, came in and did some of the counterpoint scoring, but it's so right in a story where the only thing that he tells it or sings it, or where he doesn't sing it, music counterpoints it. But it is the tune from inside his soul,
The other day I was touring a museum that is about to open in LA, and I was listening to the philosophy behind they said, we're going to just show the art, the date, and the artist. We're not going to tell you how to feel about it. And I remember the first and only time I was in front of Starry Night, the Van Gogh, how it affected me. I didn't need any further explanations. And I think that it's so beautiful that you curate what you present.
Yes.
And you let the art defend itself.
Yeah.
And you let the art talk directly to the audience. You're not telling them how to feel at all. But those moments with music and the amazing cinematic storytelling are creating a moment, and it's you. And I think you fuse with him. You fuse with him, and this I don't think would have been possible before Elvis, before you did that movie. This is like the culmination of it.
Well, it was, and we made it very, what you're saying, we made it very, once we got Elvis telling the story, John and I were like, let's get out of the way. Okay, let's just let him tell it. And what I think more than us telling it, he tells it. We curate it. You know what I mean? Curate it meaning kind of guide it here, take that out. There were decisions to be made. It was captained. But he ultimately, we always kept saying, well, what would Elvis have done? Like in terms of the sounds, and now he would have the biggest screen. He would have the latest sound. What would Elvis have done?
But this is where, and I want to say it in a theater full of people, what we've said in the past, what we've talked in the past, people think of your style as maximalist or baroque. And they think that because it's so complex, it must be easier, just more. But this is precisely proof of what I've known of you as a filmmaker, that it is the things you decide not to do what makes the experience emotional for the audience. You do not put a voiceover. You do not, you don't narrate, you don't have talking heads, you don't tell us what period is happening, what was happening. This is the moment I can say, I love Baz Luhrmann for what he does, but what he doesn't do. You know? And I think the communion with the audience, I mean, I'm serious. I have seldom seen a piece of film that communicates so purely. We know that film, all the arts aspire to the condition of music. We all want to be singers or musicians. If Orpheus had been a director, Eurydice would have stayed in hell. He would have said, I need 120 people and 10 million, fuck you, Orpheus, go. But you do it. This is an act of communication of pure passion.
Yeah, that's funny. It's funny you say that. I think you're absolutely right about the music metaphor because, well, in some regard, music takes us where words and fail us. But I think when we're making movies, I think really it is like creating a symphony. You know what I mean? It's layers and all those things. And then you're talking about Orpheus. I mean, that is actually the Elvis story. He's literally Orpheus. He literally, the very rocks and stones get up and follow where he goes because of his great gift. But his gift is also what actually ultimately, is the thing that keeps him hitting against the glass wall because it's even he, I think. Do you know the thing I notice about in all the footage, and I think you guys would agree, how funny he is. How goofy he is. And I've got a theory about it.
And his eyes.
Yeah. Do you know what I think it is? I think he grows up. I met this guy, Sam Bell, and Sam Bell said, Sam Bell said when he was living in the one white house in the black community, Sam, and where the kids go running around to the juke joint and to the gospel tent, he said, my grandparents loved Elvis. He said, but they were from East Tupelo. They were really poor. And his father had gone to a very famous jail. And I think that insecurity inside of him that so polite, so empathetic, but then he grows up into this sort of Greek god with his voice of Orpheus. And it's a bit like Whitney Houston's mom used to sing in the Sweet Inspirations. And she tells the story as a 10-year-old meeting Elvis. And she said, Elvis walked in a room, all right, with his fur coat on and the glasses. He said, you can go like, hello, Mr. Elvis, very nice to meet you. You just stared, you just stared because he was so incredible. And I think that Elvis just did all that goofing around, all that humor to disarm people, to make them feel relaxed, to go, I'm actually just a person, And I think that was part of his way of making him feel comfortable because inside he didn't feel like that,
Well, I think about 20 minutes ago, we passed the mark that we were supposed to do. I didn't give a fuck back then. I don't give a fuck there. So there's people that gotta go home. Thank you very much. Let's give it up for Baz Luhrmann. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.